company. We got a song. We
Behave.
got a psalmist in the building. You know what I'm saying?
Give us some vocal
Just give
exercises
some
real
vocal
quick. Give us some
exercise.
vocal exercises real quick just to loosen us up.
Let's try Cherie.
Ah.
That's
Ah.
a lot better than what I would have done. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. We are counting it down. It's time. Okay. That's enough. I'm gonna go ahead and intro. Yeah, listen. These are mic hogs, is what they are. If you're just tuning in, this is Behind Closed Doors with the Brookses. I'm Glenn, that's Cherie, and y'all gonna later meet Terry. We got something to say, y'all. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be back right after this. What's going on, everybody? We are back for another edition of Behind Closed Doors with the Brookses. And Cherie, we got a special guest.
Yes, we do.
It is Black History Month.
Yes, it is.
And we're highlighting history makers, and some of these people ain't dead yet.
Right. Oh, God. And it's Black History. We're celebrating Black History Month every month.
Every month.
And so it is March.
Yes.
So some of you are like, well, it's not February. No, we're celebrating Black History Month every month because Black history exists every day. And so today we have my dear, dear friend who was one of the very first people I met when we moved here to Panama and befriended. And I didn't know who you were, though. I didn't know all the stuff. But
Yeah.
we've grown to know a little bit about your history, and we wanted to highlight you today. And so today we are featuring Terri Carroll, who is a Stellar-nominated gospel artist, and her return to her jazz roots here in Panama on this special Black History Feature Edition.
Welcome to the show, Terry. Welcome.
Thank you.
No, it's so good to have you, Terry. Come on, tell people a little bit about who you are, your journey here to Panama, and this idea of returning to your roots. Help people understand it, because when you think of Black history, I can't think of a better genre of music that debuts Blackness than jazz. So, Terry, talk to us.
Absolutely. So I left the United States during the pandemic. And I also at that time was in graduate school doing a master's in African American studies, as a matter of fact. And that really opened my eyes to a lot of things about U.S. history and, the relationship that we have as Black people and centered there, and a lot of stuff that you don't learn in primary school. Really was eye-opening. And so I just began to look at the possibility of moving out of the country. It was something that I had looked at for maybe the future as retirement. But with everything that was happening, I said, let me push this up a little bit. I looked at my finances. I saw I could do it. And actually, Panama was my first choice. But during that time, Panama was very strict about COVID and the borders. And so I looked at Ecuador, and their borders were open. And so I went to Monte, Ecuador, and that was the beginning of my expat journey. And it's been, it's 5 years now, actually. Wow. It's 5 years. It's 2025, yeah. So no, it's 4 years. January 2025 was 4 years.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So 5 years as an expat. So what has that been like? And I know, and you have to tell the story about Ecuador, because I know a little bit about that, how it started off one way, but it ended very differently, unfortunately.
Well, it started fantastic, like you said. I mean, it was exciting. It was something that I could do as a single woman. A lot of people thought I was crazy when I said I was going to do it. I actually had a Zoom meeting with my family to try to explain. My mom wanted to know, well, what's the plan? Once I explained the plan, she was okay. But got to Ecuador, and it was just beautiful. Manta is right on the coast. And it was going well for like maybe 3 years. And then, the rise in the crime and the cartel, which was, in national news, international news, I just began to feel not as comfortable. Like it really was still a beautiful place, but the dynamic had changed so much. They wind up being under martial law and having curfews, and a lot of the places were not so safe to go anymore. And so it just started not really making sense to, be there for me. Everybody has their own, level of what's enough for them. And so I decided, well, let me start looking around and see where else I could go. Panama, of course, was still always on the list. It had been my first choice. So I did a exploratory trip in 2023, came here for 2 weeks. I already knew I was going to move here when I did the exploratory trip. I just wanted to, see the neighborhoods and stuff, Right. And then I wound up moving in January last year here. So, yeah. And I love Panama.
Yeah, it was funny because when she came originally, it was right when your friend Stephanie, who you guys met in Ecuador,
Yes.
was here. Stephanie was leaving for Spain
Yes.
shortly after you got here, in a sense. But Terry got an invitation to our 25th wedding vow renewal, like sort of like
Yes.
on the spot. So
Yes, and that was awesome because I had just gotten here.
Yes.
I think I got here like on the 30th of January or something, and you guys' vow renewal was that weekend. Yes. And so it was exciting and it was beautiful too. It was exciting to be invited and to already feel kind of at home, like I knew people. And then my birthday was the next day. So coming right into Panama, it was the bomb. I did love it.
So let's backtrack to the little black girl. How did music come into your life? And then also I also want to touch on there's another part of you that also helped make it easier for you to become an expat, your military service.
Yes.
So let's talk about the little black girl and where did music come into your life and how did that influence? I mean, not everybody can say they're a 2-time Stellar Award nominee. So let's talk about that.
Yes, well, for me, the journey started in the church
Okay.
of singing. Like for a lot of people in the African American community, the church is, our bedrock. And with my grandmother, you had to be on the program for Easter or Christmas. You had to do something. You had to do a poem or you had to sing a song or something. And so for me, around the age of 3, it was Yes, Jesus Loves Me. I started singing that. And my father was the one who said, that girl can sing. And I wasn't really paying that much attention to it. But then around, in elementary school, other people started saying, I would just be playing around like at school or whatever. And other people started saying, you could sing. And I'm like, okay. So then in junior high school, I started getting into doing the plays, the productions. And then later on in high school, actually, my parents went through. I'm from Gary, Indiana originally, and when the mills started shutting down, like my senior year, so in order for me to get my seniors' week clothes and stuff, I started singing because I saw that people liked to hear me and I could make money doing it. And my parents, they were getting laid off at the mill and the bud plant and all that. So that's how I got my money for senior week. Is I Miss Elks Lodge, I think it was. They was having a pageant. And I won $200 and went and bought my clothes. That's from the '80s, y'all. Too. Right. You can't do nothing with $200 now. Money back then. Right. It was enough for me, right. And so then I started seeing, where people liked what I did. And then I started doing some work. I did some commercial jingles for Chicago radio stations. Okay. And it was really thrilling to hear myself on the radio, and it just started from there. I started getting in the studio with different folks and started honing my craft as a session singer. And then went to Southern University for a hot minute in Baton Rouge, Louisiana to major in music. But that didn't work out. And then I wound up going into the military, going into the Army. Okay. And
yeah.
Yeah. So music got on hold for a minute after the military. I got married and had my first child. But my husband, my ex-husband now, but my husband at the time, he was really supportive. And I was doing little groups, some guys at his job had a band. He was like, oh, my wife can sing. So um, that kind of stuff. Nothing really big. I started singing jazz in Atlanta with some guys who were going to Morehouse. They were jazz majors. And I didn't know how to sing jazz. I just needed a job. Because by this time, my husband and I are separated, and I need to take care of my children. And they said, "Can you sing jazz?" I said, "Yes." Because they was
Listen,
a working band, like they had jobs, like regular work. I'm gonna figure it out. So I just started picking it up. I started listening to Betty Carter, Shirley Horn, Carmen McRae, people like that. And at that time, my ear wasn't trained for listening to instrumentalists like I do now. Now I might listen to John Coltrane or Horace Silver or instrumentalists, but at that time, I was mimicking singers. Okay. And so that helped me. I was able to get work, and keep work for many years in the Atlanta jazz scene, which was really big. We're talking about, like 1991, and it was a really great jazz scene in Atlanta at that time. So we were constantly working and we had regular gigs at the venues, and we were doing like, spot people having parties or whatever. So it kept me working. Still had to have a day job too, but yeah.
yeah, Cherie, real quick before you get going again on the next question, I just want to just remind everybody, if you are just tuning in, welcome to Behind Closed Doors with the Brookses. Cherie and I normally are talking about our experiences and life here as expats in Panama. But we wanted to introduce, particularly during Black History Month, and highlight and spotlight people who are making a difference, not only in our community, but also abroad. And I think that when it talk about, obviously we're sitting here talking to Terri. Terri, one of the things that I really am reminded of is how transformative music is, and how it really latches on to people in ways like, as an adult, you can remember the first dance you went to. You can remember the first concert. Times when back in my days in radio, that was always a question of the day is, what was your first concert and what was that experience like? So if you guys have not subscribed to the channel, please do that right now. All the information, and Terri's got some things she's got coming up that you guys definitely want to know about, particularly if you are interested in the music scene here in Panama. And but yeah, Cherie, go ahead and take it away.
Yes, so you were doing jazz in Atlanta. So how did the Stellar Award, how did that come about? What was that transition?
So I got into crack in the 90s. Well, no, the late 80s. Okay. And so I was doing singing, and nobody could tell yet. We wound up one day, my high school sweetheart, who was a producer, still living in Gary, Indiana, contacted me because he was doing some work with a small gospel label, and he wanted to see if I wanted to do a project. Now, this is all God, because he in Gary, Indiana, I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. All these people in between here and there that you could have done this project with. So right. He calling me. I ain't heard from him in 13 years since we had at that point graduated from high school. I was really severely addicted to crack at that moment. But for me, I felt like, okay, it's just another gig. We'll do something for this record label, whatever. I didn't really have any money. I was single mom, so he sent me money for bus tickets for me and my children to come up to Gary from Atlanta. And the first time he sent me money, I smoked the money up. I smoked all the money up. Then I had to tell him why I smoked all the money up. And that's when he knew I was on crack. So at the time, him and his wife, and he was pastoring a church at the time, they talked about it, and they actually said, we still want her to come. This is when God be in something. We still want her to come out of all of the people who he could have chosen. So this time they just went on and bought the bus ticket up there. Said, you just go to the bus station and just get on the bus. Right. So got to Gary, and we did a demo. which is just 3 songs. He presented it to the record label, which was CGI Records. His name was Terry Garman. He's gone on to be with the Lord now. But anyway, he presented it to, he was doing some other work at the label. And when they heard that, they were like, wait a minute, what is that? We want to know what that is. And from there, we got a record deal. We got a record deal on the demo. The album wasn't finished. They didn't even have a budget for us. He just had a studio. Everything was analog.
Back in the
A
day.
studio in the basement, and all the time we're recording. I'm still severely addicted to crack cocaine. A lot of times he would come and have to kind of just beg me out of the crack house to come and finish the recording sessions. But we finally did finish the album. And when he turned in the album, it just like, it was God, like I said, because it just really blew up. CGI was a small label. Some of my label mates at the time was though Vicky Winans and the Mighty Clouds of Joy, the Christianaires, Kim McFarland,
Yeah.
folks like that.
You throwing me back because and I say that because for those that don't know, I spent a big stint in gospel radio as an announcer, program director, later sales manager, and then moved into worked at Radio One for years, and then CBS Radio. And it's crazy to me, like when you said CGI, I just was like, wait a minute, wasn't that Vicky Wine? Is it like
Yes.
So one of the things I want to kind of, and I know Cherie, you got a bunch of questions. I really want to talk about the transformation power, not only of the word, but the word in music.
Yes.
And so that's what happened, really. Like, I need y'all to hear this. This woman is addicted to crack cocaine while recording a gospel album. And so if there is no other testimony that God is real, that her, and this is for all my judgmental folks, listen to me. Here's one of the things I realize about God's giftings, right? His anointings are given to whomever he decides to bestow them upon.
Amen.
And even when we are in our deepest, darkest places,
Amen.
a lot of times those gifts rise to the top.
Yes.
And if we're honest, sometimes it's those gifts that have saved our lives. You get what I'm saying? Like they literally have pulled her. So, and I'm sure you'll dovetail into it, Cherie. But Terri, tell us a little bit about sort of if there's a story that you can be able to say, no, if it's not for this moment, I'm not here, and God is definitely doing something in your music.
Yes, absolutely. Well, one day I was supposed to be doing for the newspaper. They were doing an article on me, local hometown girl does good, and they came and took a picture of me on the side of my grandma's house, and my hair was all over my head because again, I'm running up down the street smoking dope, and I put this hat on. And when it was in the paper and it was displayed at the store, somebody said, "Oh, that crackhead," because they was used to me being in the street running around behind dope, and they couldn't believe this feature of me, having this record deal with this major label. And when I started singing like at a lot of the major churches around the country because the album really started taking off. Radio was picking it up, and a lot of times when it was time for me to get ready to go to the airport, I'm barely out of the crack house. My grandma used to be calling me, "Don't you have to be in Boston? Don't you have to be somewhere?" And I'm running to do that, but I'm still full of this dope.
Right.
And I would be on planes just crying because it's like the devil just had me like this, like I'm not finna let you go and do this thing for God. But he was in the whole thing from the beginning.
Right.
So it was going to get done, but I would be trying. Even one time, this one lady was just like, "It's going to be all right, baby." Because I was just sobbing. Right. But then I would get in the pulpit and I would be singing, and it would be always somebody standing up resonated with my testimony because I always shared my testimony about the dope, even though I was still smoking it.
Right.
Supposedly I wasn't smoking anymore. I was still telling it was past tense, but it wasn't at the time.
Right.
And it would always be somebody standing up resonating with it. If it wasn't them, it was a family member or something. At that time, crack was really big. We was caught up in the whole macro society of the war on drugs, you know what I'm saying? So it was a problem in our community. So if it had not been for that album, I would still be addicted. Well, I don't know if I would still be addicted, but my journey of crack would not have been over. That's how I was delivered from crack cocaine.
Wow.
Just sitting in that studio, and we would have the Bible open because we wanted to make sure that it was, sound doctrine. Yeah. So the word was just ministering to me, but I didn't know it. I didn't know that's what God was doing. I just thought I'm making another record. I'm a singer. I'm making records, but that's not what this was. This was something else. And then when the record didn't make me rich. I didn't make a whole lot of money or anything like that, but it was very popular. Like you said, you was in radio. It was very popular with the radio folks, and I still have people, reaching out to me today about it. And I used to wonder, like, why didn't I make any money off of it? Because I was doing TV and radio and, the GMAs. We did my video at the GMAs in Philadelphia, and Vicky Winans and the Christianaires and all these people was in my video. And I thought, I had made it. And I did make a lot of money in it, but it made me realize that that's not what God had for me, was to be making money. Not only was it for my deliverance, but for a lot of people's, deliverance. One time I did a radio interview at a station. I don't know where I was at. I was traveling so much during that time. And a lady had called in and was saying that her husband had been murdered the night before. And she heard me on the radio, and she pulled the car over because my testimony song was called Laid Low. And she was saying how much it had ministered to her. And that's the first time I was called a minister. And I'm like, who they talking to? I ain't no minister. I'm just, singing some songs. I'm still not knowing what's happening, but it touched me that your husband was just murdered, and you calling into the radio station to tell me that my song touched you like that. I mean, I was just like, this when I really started saying, okay, God, you got me doing something that he could have used anybody. Like you said, the anointing, he used whoever he wanted to. Right. And it really made the testimony even stronger when God pulling me out of the crack house. I still got dope in me when I'm going and standing in these churches and singing. And then it started moving me to when I'm leaving the churches and going back to the environment. I'm not wanting the environment no more. I'm just like, I don't want this no more, but it was still in me, so, but that was the whole album was the transformation for me. That's how I stopped smoking crack.
Right. And I appreciate you sharing your story. And for many of us that, lived through that pandemic, and I'll say the crack pandemic, we got to see loved ones suffer from that. I myself got caught up in it for a number of years, but there are so many people that we don't hear the other side. You don't get to see how God moved on people's lives. And for you, yes, the success may not have been financial success, but the success is your life today. The success was God truly transforming you into who you are today. When you first shared with us your story, I would have never, knowing you today, I would have never, ever thought that was a part of your story, because there's no remnants of it.
Right.
And that's one thing that even, I'm grateful, and I wasn't as long as you were, on drugs, but it's by the grace of God that there are no lasting effects, that there are no remnants of it. But the thing that I can say that I agree with you is that there's a faith walk that happens in those trials, in those things. And if you turn to God, if you're open to hear him, if you're open to let him in, like you said, because it's like you said, it's like you got the devil on both sides of you. And it's, they say that the pathway is narrow. It's really, really narrow. It's real narrow. And out of that, not only were you able to bless thousands of other people through your voice, through what God used you for. Now being here in Panama, now having left the U.S., family, everything, how's that been? And now this phase of your life, what does this phase look like now?
Like you say, even when I was in Ecuador, I realized that, yeah, this was the blessing. Because I never even envisioned this, living abroad and living beautifully, by oceans and mountains and peace. And, it's just, it wasn't on my vision board. But so I thank God for it. Have come a long way. And my family, they're good. My children, I thank God that, because when mama's shooting bad, baby's shooting bad. Right. So they came through as strong people, even with that. I thank God for the people that was in my life that made sure they still went to church when I was out in the street. Right. And all of those. I'm thankful that the Lord delivered me from the dope, at least for a portion of their childhood. That the whole thing, their mama wasn't on drugs, but and once I was able to come out of that fog of dope, because you can't really do nothing when you're in that fog, right. Then you can self-actualize. You can see what you can do. You can remember who you were, get back on track and get back on purpose. And so I just decided to go back to school. Got my bachelor's degree in psychology, did my master's work in African American studies. And after that period, I started noticing something going on with my throat. I couldn't quite sing the same. My throat was really tired, and that went on for years. I didn't know. I thought, maybe it was just from me abusing myself with the crack, and I used to smoke cigarettes and all of this stuff. But finally, when I got to Ecuador, I went to an ear, nose, and throat doctor and found out that I have what's called vocal paralysis. And what it is your vocal cords are supposed to close, flush, and mine have this space. So it's just a matter of doing physical therapy to get it to close, to get them to close properly. So that's when I began to have hope that, okay, maybe I can sing again now. So I've been in vocal therapy with a wonderful therapist from Ecuador for about a little bit over a year now. And that's when I began to feel like, okay, I love to go back to my roots of jazz. That's where I started, you know. So
I love it. Let me just ask this real quick, Terry. And again, for those of you guys who are just tuning in, welcome to Behind Closed Doors with the Brookses. And I'm Glenn P. Brooks Jr. That's Cherie A. Brooks Jr. with the Juniors. This is Terri Carroll. Terry, one of the things that you're saying, and I need y'all to hear this. I think that there's not enough said when we talk about history makers, the impact that people make on people's lives. I think about the people who met you along your journey, your friends who pulled you out of places where, quite frankly, you didn't want to leave. When you're addicted to something, I promise you that addiction will call you and it will tell you, nah, this ain't what you doing. You were able to just kind of catapult out of that and see yourself thriving abroad in a way that's inspiring. And I want you guys to understand that sometimes in order to inspire others, it requires A, you to change, B, you to decide to get up and go do something, and that it's in you doing something for you that it inspires other people to do that for them. Terry, when it comes to music and now this jazz scene, I know a lot of people, and Cherie, you probably have some questions on this, but there are a lot of people who are starving for good music, solid music, particularly abroad. And a lot of times you take for granted that there's all these little spots. I mean, we're from the DMV, and so if you know anything about DC and Georgetown and Blues Alley and there's just so many places. Atlanta, we lived there for a number of years, and so it's just a ton of spots. When you find yourself abroad with a gift like yours, and there's not necessarily the outlets, what does it cause you to do to be able to add to that, or does it really speak to you?
Yeah, it did speak to me because I was surprised, like you said, in DC and Atlanta too, you can pretty much trip over live music spots. When I came abroad, it was not like how I had expected. I found in Ecuador that it was more hobbyists, and it was not the level of musicianship in which I had been used to, because I was used to a very high level of musicianship. Um, so it just made me try to figure out how can I fit into this. I tried to fit into it in Ecuador, and there was some pushback because there was some jealousies. People had already had stuff established, and they didn't want me to rock the boat. So that didn't work out well there, even though I did do some singing, and the Ecuadorian people loved it. They mobbed me. When I got off the stage, I was like, oh my God, I didn't sing anything in Spanish. But that made me know that the music itself was universal, that people were loving it. So I said, okay, at least I know that much. And even though it didn't work out with me getting into a working band there like I wanted to do, or some kind of situation where I was singing regularly, I felt that Panama was going to have a lot more opportunities. And so it does, in the fact that there's a lot more live venues here. I have not seen that same type of jazz scene as far as vocalists here, but there I have seen some fantastic instrumentalists. And the jazz festival, Danilo Perez, he blew my mind. Oh my God. I want to run up on the stage. I'm like, that's what I've been looking for. That. And some of the young cats that are, like at places like the Umami Bodega, they are learning their craft, they're cutting their teeth, and that reminds me of when I was doing it, when I was their age, and we would just, have the places that we just sat in, saying that the jazz spots. And so I'm hopeful, that there is some way that I can make it work here.
Yeah, one thing that, we've experienced, and being from a major metropolitan city in the U.S., we are accustomed to live music. We are accustomed to being able to go and hear music, and it has been somewhat challenging. There are spots, but it's what they're playing. There are a lot of live music, but is it what you're interested in? And so being able to identify those spots, I think is definitely key. And I know you're working on something that's going to kind of start to fill a little void of that for us. I'm going to say us old heads who like jazz music. Now, for myself, I grew up with a very eclectic palette. From the Boston pops to jazz to country. My parents exposed me to every genre of music, and so I'm very fluent in music, but I do have my preferences. My dad, and I've talked about before, he passed away in October. Jazz was his thing. And so jazz has a deep place in my heart. And so being able to find some place to be able to enjoy jazz definitely would be pleasurable for me. But what are some things that you are working on to try to expose us here in Panama to some real jazz music?
Well, it's still a big secret. Working on it. But however, I have, like you noticed, paid attention to, I don't have to be like a jazz purist as far as straight ahead, but when I see something that says somebody is doing jazz, then I want to hear jazz. And that's what I'm not hearing. So I want to fill that space without telling too much. I want to fill that. I want to fill that space with an online component and a live component in the city. And you guys are being very instrumental.
Working on some stuff.
We working on some stuff.
We working on some
We just
stuff.
can't tell y'all too much.
Not yet. Not yet. Not yet.
But
It's
yeah,
coming.
it's coming. So I'm pretty excited about it because I see that it's a need that has to be filled. There's a space there. That's the first rule of marketing. Fill the space that you see. And I've kind of done a little test with people. I did something. I have a jazzy version of Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. And on Christmas Day, I just sent it out to everybody on my phone, and everybody was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, what's that? Where can we buy that?" I said, "Okay, so they want this." And even the comments, it was more of not just them liking it, but the comments that I was getting back was, where you singing at? This is what we want to hear. Like, people ready to buy tickets. I was just sending out a Christmas song that morning. So
They trying to
That's
book you.
hilarious.
yeah. So yeah.
Where can we book you?
Yeah, so I'm
That's
excited.
hilarious.
I think it's exciting to, as you said, the journey has brought me to a place that I have to be ready to step into, because the whole vocal paralysis thing, it shook my confidence.
Right.
But as it begins to get stronger, then I know that there's a space for me here. So I need to just keep staying healthy so I can, step into that.
One thing I just wanted to just add so that y'all are clear, we're gonna give y'all just a taste, a little morsel of because I know a lot of you guys are sitting there saying, "Well, wait a minute, wait a minute, you just can't just tease us with what she sounds like and that sort of stuff." So y'all stay tuned for a quick second, but I want y'all also do me a favor to head down to the descriptions, because we're gonna put Terry's information there and create a wait list of sort, so that when she begins to do what it is that she's going to do and you want to come follow or be a part, you'll know, be some of the first to know, and then she'll be able to get a hold of you, Sheree.
Yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to put together, it's going to be like a newsletter list. You'll sign up, and so you'll get an email notification when she launches, what she's going to do, keep you up to date on upcoming events, anything that she's doing, so that you'll be the first to know. And so there'll be a sign-up list that you guys can sign up for, so that you can stay in contact with her for that. And like I said, we'll let you guys know when things are happening. But can you give us just a little taste? Just a little taste.
Okay, just a little taste. I'm gonna give y'all a little taste of something. Okay. Wide open, wide loose. The mistake wasn't made. Love fell from my lips, rolled down my chin, and landed in his lap, and thus became new, and me not clairvoyant. In love we made me a fool. You were never true. If you didn't want me, you should have let me know. All you did was make a mockery of something so incredible and beautiful. I honestly did love you. Love rained down on me. Miss Jill Scott. But I ain't giving y'all none of my repertoire yet. They ain't giving y'all, because there ain't no sneak peeks of the repertoire. Got to come out.
Listen. So for those of you guys that enjoy at least the vocal, I mean the stylings, right, of Miss Terri Carroll. Do me a favor, y'all head down to the descriptions below and get involved, get signed up. I'm excited, really, Terry, because, and I told you before we started recording, I think the thing that excites me more than anything else is watching your light. And when I say your light, knowing that you talked about this about a year and a half ago when we met you, and I never forgot that conversation at that coffee shop, and we're here because you decided to stay with the physical therapy, stay with building your confidence, stay with building community, and we're building a movement here in Panama where people can come, they can assemble, they can get together, they can find their tribe, and we can all grow while living liberated. And that's just kind of where we are. Sheree, you got anything you want to say in closing before we roll?
She my friend. She my friend. No, thank you so much for sharing, Terry. And I know this isn't a challenge for you. I know a lot of people struggle with telling their story, but there's power in sharing your story and letting other people know what you've been through and how you've come through it and how you have got to be to where you are today. Your story is powerful. I'm blessed to be able to see you on the other side and to continue to watch you to grow, see what God is continuing to do with you. And I'm just excited. I'm looking forward to seeing all that He's going to do here in Panama and abroad, because it may not just be here.
Yay.
That part.
Receiving that. Thank you so much.
Listen, not that we telling y'all any secrets. We just want to let y'all know. Terri, thank you so much. Appreciate you. Anything you want to share in closing before
I
we
just
run?
want to say thank y'all both, Glenn and Sharif, for having me here. And you guys really were very instrumental in me just sitting at this table. Like you said, a year and a half ago, I knew I needed to reach out to y'all, but I still wasn't quite sure what I needed to do. I just said, those are the people I need to talk to. So I'm gonna put my reservation in.
Amen.
And so God is bringing it. He's bringing it around. So thank y'all so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Listen, here's what I know to be true. You cannot get to any place of significance by yourself. Folks. And why is that? It's because we all
need some help.
We all need some help.
Yeah. that part. Help me. Look, y'all be good. We'll be back again next week for another edition of Behind Closed Doors with the Brookses. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye, guys.